Hits per nine. It's been a really controversial part of MLB The Show 21. It's been probably the most important and most talked about ever in MLB The Show history. So what we are going to do today is we're going to talk about the story of hits per nine in MLB The Show 21, talk about the trends and where we could see this going in MLB The Show 22, and talk about why this was really such a big deal this year. Let's get into it. Before I get into the story on hits per nine, I do appreciate you all watching this video. In case you are brand new, have not hit that subscribe button, make sure you do. I do upload basically daily throughout the week here, giving you tips on MLB The Show, giving you info about the new game. We're gonna be doing a lot of that and doing just a bunch of MLB The Show related things in the channel. So make sure you keep up with the channel and all the uploads. Also, as you may see, I do have a jersey. Yes, we got real life jerseys of my MLB The Show jersey. It's super cool. If you want to support me in the channel, make sure you check out the link in my description. Use the code SCAN at checkout. Get 15% off on your jersey. And these are going to be available until next Friday. So if you guys want to get one, want to support the channel, you want to look fresh in this jersey, make sure you check out that link in the description. But without further ado, let's talk about the story of hits per nine and the narrative around it in MLB The Show 21. So in case you are someone who doesn't know what hits per nine entirely does, it is the attribute that a pitcher gets that basically makes their opponent's PCI smaller. So if someone has a high hits per nine, that inner PCI, part of the PCI where you square up the ball, it makes it smaller when they have a higher hits per nine. So it's a pretty important attribute, especially on Hall of Fame and Legend difficulty, when trying to make World Series or you're playing against solid players. It is a big part in countering some of the good hitters that we get throughout the year. And it has gone through quite the roller coaster this year. So first, we're just going to kind of progress through the story of hits per nine, see the direction it's gone throughout the season, and talk about what sort of feedback there is to have about it. So first, we had our beginning part of the year, and a lot of our low diamonds don't have great hits per nine. Most of them have pretty mid-tier hits per nine. Even if someone threw a no-hitter, their hits per nine was usually below 100 in this early part of the game. And this is during a part of the season where pitchers were just slinging no-hitter after no-hitter, and their hits per nine were overall not too high. You know, they were just about 90 in many of the scenarios of these no-hitters, which wasn't really too much. You know, at the beginning part of the game, that's more than fair. It's not like OP or anything where it's too hard to deal with. But as the year went on, our diamonds got better and better, and it started to progress up. You know, we got some no-hitter cards like Corey Kluber. He's technically a no-hitter card because he got a monthly award card with very high hits per nine, 111. And, you know, Corbin Burns had high 90s as his monthly award card. Jacob Degrom started to get better and better on his live series, and he eventually got up to 106 hits per nine. And a lot of our pitchers early on in the game started to get better and better hits per nine, but this is about normal. This is about normal for the trend of hits per nine. Team Affinity 3 eventually happened, where Edward Cabrera was a popular pick because of his pitch mix, but again, the hits per nine wasn't too high. There were other solid pitchers that were being used, but there was a lot of room, you know, there's a lot of room for pitching. Then Team Affinity 3 came out. The All-Star Game content came out. That was the first sign of the elite hits per nine cards we got. Lance Lynn, 115 hits per nine on his card. Jacob Degrom on his base card had 119 hits per nine. And then other All-Star Game cards had pretty good hits per nine still, like Freddie Peralta, who did strike out the side for an inning, had 113. Ohtani, who did have a pretty solid pitching year to start off, has 112 hits per nine on his All-Star card. We started to see this sudden jump in the hits per nine. And I think it was because they're current players, so they wanted to see a change in some of the teams. They wanted to see current players be used more. But it was just a big jump, and this started just a constant trend of getting these milestone cards that were keeping up with guys like Jacob Degrom. Al Leiter had 118 hits per nine on his base card. We got James Paxton, who has 115, which is the best his card's ever been. Justin Verlander, who has, I think he actually has near 125, and Felix Hernandez, who had 120 on his base card. We started to get a lot of these perfect game, no-hitter milestone cards with very, very good hits per nine, and this started to really change how the game played. Pitching really took a big jump with this hits per nine. It really made pitching almost ahead of hitting in a sense because of how small PCIs would have been. And facing guys on Hall of Fame and Legend with Degrom, Felix Hernandez, Justin Verlander, Jake Arrieta, Nolan Ryan. Pitchers like this were very difficult to hit, and it threw this game off for a bit of a loop. A lot of people started to get frustrated with the outlier, the high hits per nine, and people started to get, annoyed at the game. And, it was very tough to hit for a bit, and it was just a constant cycle facing the same starters over and over and over again. It started to drive people a little nuts, and people just would lean towards the really good milestone, no-hitter, all-star game cards with elite level hits per nine, and it basically kept them in their rotation forever. And also with how the hits per nine was treated, a lot of people who had Edward Cabrera parallel 5, it was very close to what Edward Cabrera looked like at that point, so people just kept on using him too. You started to get this issue where the lineup diversity, the variety of pitchers you faced, it really wasn't there. It was not as good as it could be, as it should be. There were tons of cards being released, and people were like, oh, that card is mid, not really using that card, who cares about that? And I think once they had recognized that, hey, maybe we have a little bit of an issue with the high hits per nine, it seemed like they made it very clear that most of the last part of the game, the hits per nine isn't going to be the deciding factor of using pitchers. They seem to gauge hits per nine dependent on like how good the pitcher's pitch mix is, and using that is like a main deciding factor of the card. Obviously, hits per nine is valuable and it means a lot, but if the pitcher doesn't have easy pitches to throw and they don't have much break or maybe velocity, they're gonna get hit hard no matter what, because it's easy to square up pitches when they don't really move much or if they don't have timing to throw you off. So we started to get guys like Cole Hamels, who had a little lower hits per nine than some of the other players. We got Dennis Eckersley. We got Pedro Martinez, who was a big L for many people because of that hits per nine. Greg Maddux, Walter Johnson. A lot of these players, just about 100 hits per nine. And if they did get elite level hits per nine, they're guys like Mike Scott and Catfish Hunter, who really don't have elite pitch mixes. Their pitches don't have the most velocity. They pitch kind of slow, don't have the most break, don't have the best control, and they're kind of easy to hit with the pitches they throw. And then this became the trend for the rest of the year. It was these cards that we would get. Then eventually it got solidified with our finest cards. These are normally the best cards of the year, or some of the best cards of the year. And guys like Corbin Burns, who had an unreal season, his hits per nine was 114 on his base card, which is nowhere close to guys like Degrom, Felix, Verlander, all those dudes we mentioned earlier on that were released at the halfway point of the year. But what they did to make them better is they tried to give them better pitches and better control and better break. So obviously Corbin Burns has the sinker cutter. They gave him outlier on the sinker, which makes that very valuable. He pitches it harder. He has really good control in all of his pitches and really good break. And a lot of these finest cards exhibit that same trend. Zach Wheeler, very good break all around. Charlie Morton, very solid control. Elite break on all of his pitches beside the cutter. And you compare him to guys like Degrom, when you look at the break and the control that they have, you can see that they really made this really good. Like Degrom, his control is very close to par with many of the other pitchers, but that break is not. 70 break in the curveball really isn't that much. 48 break on the two seam, that pitch doesn't really help that much. He really is just like a 3-pitch pitcher in comparison to many of these other pitchers with the control and the break he has on his first 3. Really, they've tried to balance cards in this manner of not making the hits per nine too hard and too annoying, but they also tried to make them more wanted by the pitch selection they have, the amount of the velocity they have. Like a lot of pitchers got outlier in their sinkers, like Zach Wheeler, Frankie Montas, and it's something that they really seem to focus on in his last part of the year. And I think that it shows that, first of all, they heard the feedback, and FCS, company that makes the game, I promise you, they do field feedback, and they have a good idea of where the community sits on a lot of things. And it just seemed like an immediate reaction to that. They were like, oh, maybe it was a little egregious with the hits per nine. We realized that, so maybe we start to release cards with lower hits per nine, maybe go in this direction. Because a lot of people do start to trend towards new cards anyway. They just like to mix up the team, use names they like, and they really went in with that on finest here. And I think that it was them trying to offset that. Yes, there are always gonna be people that go for the best attributes and just stick with the same players the entire time. But they were trying to find another way to make pitchers end game other than just raising up their hits per nine. And I think it is indeed a success. I like Zach Wheeler a lot. card is very solid. Corbin Burns has been great for me so far. Garrett Cole, other than one event game, has been very competitive for me, despite his slightly lower hits per 9 and, not that great stuff on his card, to be honest. The sinker is really useful. And these pitchers are very viable. And I think it comes to show it's going to be a narrative thing that carries into MLB The Show 22. One of the things I predict they're going to announce in one of their SDS streams or make it clear that the pitchers with like elite level hits per 9, guys like Oral Hershiser, guys like our other no-hitter cards, guys like our all-star game cards, I think they're going to either make it clear in one of the SDS streams or they're just going to go about it by releasing cards this year by keeping those starting pitchers below a cap of hits per 9. They're going to have a certain amount of hits per 9 at a certain point as the year goes on. Like, I think the first half of the year, maybe you could see like 110 hits per 9 be a cap for starting pitchers. And as the year goes on, they progressively work their way towards 125. But also they balance it out based on the pitch mix that the player throws. Give them really good pitches, give them really good break, and make that the aspect that makes them good, not the hits per 9 aspect of it. Change the other aspects. Maybe starting pitchers should not have the same level of hits per 9 as many of the relief pitchers we get. Make that in a relief pitcher exclusive thing. And the only time you do that with starting pitchers is later on in the year with pitchers with not so great pitch mixes to kind of make them more viable at that point in the game. And I picture you see this change next year, and I would be absolutely shocked if they did the same thing next year as they did this year with that All-Star game drop, which overall was a W and I think was great, but it did cause some repercussions for the future of the game. And it did take away from the lineup variety, which I know is something that's really a big focus. That is going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments section. What pitchers are you using in your rotation right now? Are you using hits per 9 as the main determinant of using a pitcher? Or are you just using new cards to mix up the team, have some fun with different players? Or do you not even consider it at all, despite everyone else really making it a big deal? But I hope you guys enjoy this type of discussion video. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff like this on the channel throughout the last few months of the game. I'm not going to be able to talk about and review as many new cards. So we're going to sit here, we're going to discuss things like this. We'll make some fun video ideas like card concepts and things that further engage our discussion about MLB The Show and breaking down all the news whenever we hear that. That is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all again on the next one early next week. Deuces.